I'm making an Odd Eyes deck profile. Odd Eyes is probably my favorite dragon-based deck, just because of how it's a pendulum deck that summons a bunch of big dragons for no apparent reason whatsoever. Anyway, moving on. Starting with the monsters, I play one copy of Performer Pal Odd Eyes Synchron. Odd Eyes Synchron has the pendulum effect of letting you target a Performer Pal or Odd Eyes monster you control. And then for the duration of the turn, that monster's treated as a tuner, and its level becomes 1. However, that pendulum effect is hardly ever used because it being a scale 6, it's bad for the deck since the main scale you want it in your scales is at least 8, because most of your monsters in stack are level 7. Then I play one copy of Skullcrobat Joker. Oh yeah, I never explained the monster effect. The main purpose of this in this deck has the effect of you can target a monster in your pendulum scale, summon it, and then immediately perform Synchro Summon using just those 2 monsters. Then I play one copy of Skullcrobat Joker. Joker has the effect on when it's normal summon to let you add a Performer Pal, Magician, Pendulum monster, or an Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand. I don't actually know what its pendulum effect is because you never send your pendulum scale. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. Persona Dragon has the effect as a monster where you can target one effect monster. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster on the field, and someone from the extra deck and negate its effects until the end of the turn. So it's a walking negate. I forget what scale effect is. Yeah. And then its pendulum effect is once per turn during the end phase. If your opponent activated a card or effect that targeted an Odd Eyes monster you control, you can summon this from your scale and then place an Odd Eyes from your face-up extra deck in your pendulum scale. Then I play one copy of Performer Pal Odd Eyes Dissolver. Odd Eyes Dissolver is another one that you don't hardly put in your pendulum scale, but it has the effect of once per turn it lets you fusion summon. That's about it. And then when it's summoned as a monster, lets you fuse it with a monster in your pendulum scale. Then I play 2 copies of Xion K Magician. Xion K Magician, its monster effect is once per turn you can target a light monster on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Its pendulum effect lets you take an Xyz monster and treat its rank as a level. And that is needed for other plays with Odd Eyes Rebellion or Odd Eyes Raging Dragon. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. You're never putting this in your pendulum scale, you're always summoning this. But it has the effect of when it's pendulum summoned, or it has the effect of if this pendulum summoned, I can't talk. It has the effect of when this pendulum summoned card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, it can inflict 1,200 points of damage for every Odd Eyes card in your pendulum scales. So if it attacks directly, and it deals 2,500 points of battle damage, and then its own effect deals another 24. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. This is only in here because you can't really play Odd Eyes without playing Pendulum Dragon. But Odd Eyes has the pendulum effect during the end phase. You can destroy it to then add a pendulum monster with 1,500 or less attack from your deck to your hand, which is any of the first 5 monsters that I covered. But that effect only matters because of the next monster's pendulum effect. And it has the monster effect of whenever it deals whenever it deals damage from battling a monster, that damage is doubled. Then I play the most important pendulum scale in the deck, 3 copies of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Arc Pendulum Dragon is a normal monster that has the effect of if an Odd Eyes card is destroyed by battle or card effect, once per turn you can special summon an Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then I play one copy of Odd Eyes Saber Dragon just to try to be cute. Saber Dragon has the effect of you can summon it by attributing a light monster and sending an Odd Eyes Dragon from your deck to the grave. We don't play Odd Eyes, but Odd Eyes Dragon. But Odd Eyes Saber Dragon is a level 7, so you can easily Pendulum Summon it. The effect it does use, however, is when it destroys a monster at battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. So it's a non-targeting destruction. Then I play one copy of Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. I really like Gravity Dragon with another monster in the extra deck, just because of the fact that Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon has the effect of when it's ritual summoned to be able to Harpy's Feather Duster your opponent's field when they can't respond to that effect with spells or traps. And in order for them to activate cards or effects while it's in play, they have to pay 500 life points. Gravity Dragon is fun to use, especially in conjunction with another monster in the extra deck, which I'll get to that when I get there. I then play one copy of Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon. Lancer Dragon, it just says that if a pendulum monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, contribute one monster special on card from your hand. Or if is controlled, not would be. But then it says if this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps until the end of the damage step. If an Odd Eyes card or cards you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy one Odd Eyes card in your hand, monster zone, or pendulum zone instead. So it just lets you keep protecting your scales and other things. And then I play two copies of Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon. Phantasma Dragon's pendulum effect is you can discard a card to add one face-up dragon pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, and that's a hard once per turn scale effect. Its other effect is if you have two cards in your pendulum zones and a face-up Odd Eyes pendulum monster in your extra deck, it's a free summon. However, you cannot pendulum summon for that turn. And then during damage calculation of this card attacks an opponent's monster, you can make that opposing monsters lose 1,000 attack for each face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck during damage calculation only. You can only use each effect of Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon once per turn. So I like Phantasma Dragon because this deck's out to cards like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon because it doesn't target the monster to weaken it. Then to finish off the monsters, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. Revolution Dragon's monster effect is you can pay 500 life points to discard it and then add I believe it has to be level 8 or lower dragon pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, which is literally all of the pendulum monsters in this deck except for Revolution Dragon, Phantasma Dragon, and then the non-Odd Eyes monsters, other than Dissolver and Synchron. But after that, its effect is that it must be pendulum summoned from your hand or special summoned from your hand by attributing 3 dragon monsters of Fusion, Synchro, and XZs. And then it gains attack and defense equal to half your opponent's life points. And then you can pay half of your own life points to shuffle all other cards on the field and graveyards into the deck. So its monster effect lets you search, and it can more or less restart the game with current life points at the cost of half your life points. And then its pendulum effect is you can't pendulum summon monsters except for dragon monsters, and that effect cannot be negated. You can target one dragon, Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz monster in your graveyard, destroy itself, and special summon that target. And its pendulum effect is more or less a monster reborn for Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz. And that is it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells. Play one copy of Odd Eyes Advent. Odd Eyes Advent just lets you ritual summon any dragon ritual monster from your hand or graveyard by attributing pendulum monsters from your hand or field that's levels equal or exceed that ritual monster's. And then it says if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you control no monsters, you can also use Odd Eyes monsters in your extra deck for the ritual summoning. Then I play one copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Just deal it back row because this is a assault deck or a Unga Bunga beat face deck, so back row kind of hurts. One copy of Miracle Synchro Fusion, which will be covered in the extra deck, or if you can't already tell, by the Field Center. One copy of Monster Reborn, because Monster Reborn. One copy of Pendulum Paradox, which doesn't really need to be in here, but I kind of like having the one. Pendulum Paradox just lets you take 2 Pendulum monsters with the same, or different names, but the same scale, so like it can let you add things like Phantom and Pendulum back to your hand from your extra deck. Then I play 2 copies of Spiral Flame Strike. Spiral Flame Strike lets you either, if you control an Odd Eyes card, target one card in the field and destroy it, or add a level 7 or lower Odd Eyes monster from your deck, or level 7 Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. And the best part about it is not once per turn, so if you have to see 2 of them, then you can add 2 level 7 Odd Eyes monsters from your deck to your hand, or add a level 7 Odd Eyes, scale the Odd Eyes, and then destroy a card in the field. But typically, if you open 2 of these, you're going to be searching for Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and Arc Pendulum Dragon. Then I play 2 copies of Dragon Shrine, just foolish dragons. Sometimes with this deck you do need to have dragons in the grave, but it's not all that important, so if you want to take cards out, you can take out the Dragon Shrines, the Pendulum Paradox. Then I play 2 copies of Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance just lets you add a card from your deck to your hand that has the word Pendulum in its name. Then I play 3 copies of Sky Iris. Sky Iris has the effect of Magician, perform power on Odd Eyes cards in your Pendulum zones, cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects. You can target one other face-up card in the field, destroy it, and if you do, add an Odd Eyes card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effective Odd Eyes, or Sky Iris once per turn. Sky Iris is meant to work with the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, so that you can destroy a card, get a search, and then Arc Pendulum Dragon will summon something. Typically, you'll end up summoning Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon unless you've already ritual summoned Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. Then you just keep bringing it back. Then I play 3 copies of the newly released Pendulum Treasure. Pendulum Treasure is a hard once per turn spell that lets you add a Pendulum monster from your deck to your face-up extra deck. So this helps you get quicker access to cards. Then, because it is a go second deck, I do play 3 copies of Lightning Storm, which is, if you control no face-up cards, is either a Raigeki or Harpy's Feather Duster that you can only activate once per turn. Then to finish off the spells, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Fusion. Odd Eyes Fusion lets you fusion summon a dragon-type fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or side of the field as materials. But if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you have none, you can also use Odd Eyes monsters in your extra deck for the fusion summoning. And that is it for the spells. Moving on to the extra deck. I play 1 copy of Predaplant Green Anaconda. I only play this because I do play the 1 Miracle Synchro Fusion. And technically you can take out those 3 spells I mentioned earlier if you want to play Dragoon. because there are some cards in the extra deck that don't actually need to be played that can you toss a Dragoon in for. But I'd rather try this variant first before I try tossing in a card I believe should be banned. But it lets you target one monster on the field, change it to dark, or you can send a fusion to the grave at the cost of 2,000 life points to then activate that spell's effect as Anaconda's effect. And then when you use this effect, you cannot summon monsters for the rest of the turn. Then I play one copy of, let's hope I don't butcher it, Volopharyngus, the Darkest Dragon Doom Rider. This card is fun in this deck because when it has a dragon as a material, its effect becomes a quick effect. With that effect being once per turn, you can use 2 materials from this card, target one face-up card on the field, destroy it, and if you do, if you destroyed a monster, you can make one face-up monster you control gain attack equal to the destroyed monster's original level or rank times 300 till the end of the turn, until the end of the next turn. This card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. And then it becomes a quick effect while it has a dragon material. And it's considered it's a deck of level 7 dragons. I don't see why you wouldn't play this. Then I play 2 copies of Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. I'm testing this at 2, but if I don't like it, then I'll be replacing the second Flare Metal with number 11 Big Eye. But Flare Metal, with this deck at least, while it has materials that can't be destroyed by card effects, and then each time your opponent activates a card or effect, you burn them for 500. However, you don't actually use its effect to use materials, so it will always be protected. Because the effect to use materials only summons a Red Eyes normal monster from the graveyard. So this is literally just, oh, you're playing? How about I punish your life points? Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon is basically just number 39 Utopia, but better. Because Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon lets you use material to negate an attack, and lets you bring back an Odd Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard. So it's the Utopia that not only negates an attack, but gives you another body. And when it dies, when it is destroyed by battle or card effect, it lets you summon another Odd Eyes monster if you're extra deck ignoring summoning conditions. Then I play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon has the effect of, if you can pendulum summon level 7 monsters, you can summon in this card from your face-up extra deck. You never place it in your pendulum scale. But its effect is, while it has an Xyz monster's material, you can use, I want to say it's 2 materials. I don't remember. It's been a while since I last played Rebellion Dragon. Let's see. Okay. If it's Xyz summoned using Xyz monster as material, you can destroy all level 7 or lower monsters your opponent controls, burn your opponent for 1,000 for every card destroyed by its effect, and if anything was destroyed by its effect, it then gets 3 attacks during each battle phase. So once again, if your opponent has a board of little monsters, then Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon can help you clear that board, and then go for game. Then I play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Raging Dragon. Raging Dragon has a similar effect, except if it has an Xyz monster as material, it can use 1 material to activate 1 of 2 effects. And one of them is, or you can use material. Wow, I'm just very wrong on these apparently. So its effect is, if its Xyz card is Xyz summoned using the Xyz monster as material, it gains the ease effects where it can attack twice during each battle phase. And once per turn, you use a material, destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, it gains 200 attack for each card until the end of the turn. So again, this is another thing that can end your opponent easily because of its 2 attacks, and I'm going to ruin your board now, more or less effect. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. Meteor Burst Dragon has the effect of when it is summoned from, I believe it has to be summoned from the extra deck. No. When this card is special summoned, you can target 1 card in your Pendulum Zone, special summon it. Also, this card cannot attack for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect as Meteor Burst Dragon once per turn. Monsters in your opponent's possession cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. So this is just decent for if your opponent has monsters that can activate effects in the battle phase, or if you know your opponent has Honest, or things like that. Most of this is only in here for 1 of 2 materials for the next monster, which is Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon has the requirement of needing an Odd Eyes monster and a Pendulum monster. And with Odd Eyes Fusion, you can get that very easily by using things like Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon with Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. But Meteor Burst Dragon has the effect of when it's special summoned, you can target 1 opponent's face-up attack position monster, it returns to the hand. And then if your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, you can shuffle 1 Pendulum monster from your face-up extra deck back into the deck to negate that effect and destroy it. So it's a generic negate that recycles your resources. And then I play 1 copy of Performer Pal Gatling Ghoul. Gatling Ghoul just requires a Pendulum monster and a level 5 higher Dark monster, which, surprise, this deck is. Because you're always summoning this off of Odd Eyes Dissolver, which is a Performer Pal, and then all the Odd Eyes are level 5 or higher Dark monsters. But it has the effect of when it's fusion summoned, you can inflict 200 points damage to your opponent for each card on the field. And then if it's fusion summoned using a Pendulum monster as material, you can destroy 1 monster your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. You can only use each effect of Gatling Ghoul once per turn. But I just like it because it's a decent monster you can summon in time to burn your opponent really bad. And I hate that the new time rules, because now you can just do things like this that deal a lot of damage if you get in time. I just don't like it. Then I play 1 copy of Ruin Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Ruin Eyes Pendulum Dragon just requires an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and a Spellcaster. If it is fusion summoned using monsters that are pendulum summoned, it becomes unaffected by card effects till the end of the turn. And if you pendulum summon it using a level 5 or level 4 or lower Spellcaster, then it gets 2 attacks during each battle phase. But if you summon it using a level 5 or higher, which you use a level 7, then it gets 3 attacks on monsters. I just like it gets some multi-attack 3000 monster, and there aren't really many things that can stand up to a 3000 triple attack monster. As I said, it's just a deck that summons a bunch of dragons for no apparent reason. And to finish off the extra deck, I play the 1 copy of Supreme King Zark. This currently is the Anaconda fusion monster that I go for. Just because Zark is one of my favorite monsters in the game. Zark is actually second only to the Earthbound Immortals. But it's a very close first for favorite. But Zark is the whole reason I like pendulums. Just because its effect of... It does require a fusion, synchro, Xyz, and pendulum dragons for each one as material, but it's well worth it because if you activate Odd Eyes Fusion, that gets you 3 of the 4 materials required. But Supreme King Zark has the effect of when he's fusion summoned, destroy your opponent's entire board. If it destroys a monster in battle, summon another Supreme King monster. That effect doesn't really matter that much. But it's a 4000 body that can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects. And Zark has the effect of when it's destroyed, you can place it in your pendulum scale. It's a low scale, which is great for this deck, but sad whenever it does happen. unless your opponent's playing a Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz based deck, because then its pendulum scale is your opponent cannot. The effects of your opponent's Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters are negated. Which I just think is hilarious because it punishes them for destroying it. But overall, Zarg's one of my favorite monsters just because it's 4,000 body that can't be target destroyed. And if I had more room in the extra deck for other cards, I'd also be playing cards like Supreme King Dragon, Starving Venom. I would play that, except it's banned. Cards like Supreme King Dragon, Clear Wing, Supreme King Dragon, Dark Rebellion. Technically, I could play Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes in the main deck because it is an Odd Eyes. But that is it for my Odd Eyes deck profile. If you have any other ideas what I can do to improve the deck, or ways I can, or other decks you want me to see me make, or decks you want to see face each other, feel free to comment those below. Thanks for watching.